What's up, Knucklehead? I am Lupine Fiasco, and this is your daily FaB gameplay. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the jungle. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I'll talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the line I would take now compared to the line I took then at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like the upcoming US Nationals and, most importantly, walk away with that shiny cardboard. If you would like to check out the deck I'm playing here or try it for yourself on Talishar, there is a FaB deck link available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you access to the DFG Discord and the shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video. You'll get bonus DFG content every week, and there are even more benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Now, let's talk about our sideboard and about our game plan. It's Friday. It's May 31st. It is part of the Mistveil release date, which is great because I can leave the open format queue and head back to undo CC. There are no guarantees that we are going to get a good quality of match on Talishar, even in undo CC, but I do feel like that weeds out our NEW players from our NUU players. We've got another new matchup. It's been a week since I posted the last one. Obviously, some changes and iterations to the deck have happened, but nothing so drastic that make me feel that our strategy of full aggressive value, don't play defense, is wrong. New plays a ton of attack reactions that can affect all of her attacks, be they Leave No Witnesses, Death Touch, Double Trouble, Persuasive Prognosis, the worst one, of course, being Bonds of Agony, but attack reactions lose a lot of their value when we don't play into them. If we are anticipating you having the attack reactions and don't block, well, then the reactions become below rate attacks. Venomous Bite is 1 for 4 with Go Again. Hiss is 1 for 3 with Go Again and possibly bankable Go Again, but if I know that my new opponent has a Slither in her arsenal, I am a lot more okay with just sending a pulping or sending big damage and knowing that she doesn't have a defense reaction or even really that good of a 1 or 2 card hand. So rather than block, we just don't, and we race, and we get more value per turn than new does. And to that effect, we are playing a aggressive game. We are using our Savage Sash instead of our Spring Tunic, and we are just boarding out our Cast Bones and boarding in our yellow Wild Rides, because who cares if we have 12 non-blocks in our deck? We aren't going to block anyway. The reason we don't block, of course, is not so much that we are worried about new getting over the top of blocks, it's that we are worried about new taking cards out of our hand. Against Uzuri, for example, we are more than happy to block a 6-power attack with 2/3 blocks, and on our turn pitch a blue to play a 2 for 6 or a 2 for 8 and play that mid-range tempo kind of small Rhinar game plan while we look for a 5-card Blood Rush turn or a 4-card Blood Rush with Sash. But against new, with Persuasive Prognosis and Bonds of Agony taking cards out of our hand, we can't do that. Siren's Call takes a card out of our hand. And we cannot necessarily put New on only having so much power. She might have just a Nick instead of Venomous Bite, and now that gets over the top of our blocks. And if we block for 6 and New gets over the top of that and takes a card from our hand, we only have 1 card left. We can't do anything on our turn. So rather than block, we just don't. And if she takes a card out of our hand, all right, well, we still have a 2-card play and we get to arsenal the 3rd card. If she doesn't take cards from our hand, then we have a 4-card play. And that's the idea anyway. So just don't block, play for full offensive value. Take your beatings when New does have the nuts, but for the most part, she won't. And that is how we win this matchup. So I'm going to submit deck and show you what that looks like. Spoiler alert, we do win this game. We are still going to try to tighten up that gameplay, but for the most part, this is more of a demonstration of the new game plan rather than refinement of it. Having lost the die roll, we will be going first. This is not an ideal hand. Because we are going first, we would prefer not to let New filter cards. But this hand is pretty terrible if we just pass. We don't have a wind-up, we don't have a pulping, we don't have anything that is going to get us an advantage without giving New the opportunity to filter. So rather than keep a pretty bad hand, we are just going to play Assault and Battery, pitch our Smash Instinct, and we will beat chest by discarding a Send Packing, set up that Might and Agility for next turn with a Send Packing in the arsenal, and that is going to do just fine. It is really going to increase our chance of being able to convert 5 cards to offense so that we are not incentivized to play defense, or at least not punished for not playing defense. The hand we draw into is okay. It isn't going to work well with our Send Packing. Spider's Bite basically never gets blocked. We are on a no-block game plan, so our attacks blocking less, really not that big of a problem. Beckoning Mistblade here coming in for 1. The real thing to consider with New having 2 cards in hand, plus Flick Knives and Black Tech Whisperers, there are a couple lines we need to be concerned about. The most obvious one is Surgical Extraction, which would just get in for 4. New doesn't have a way to buff the Surgical Extraction value, but the problem with Surgical Extraction is if we don't block this Mistblade, Surgical comes in for 5. And because our attack actions block worse, we would have to give more armor. And as much as I said we don't want to block, Surgical with no potential reactions behind it is something we want to block because we know what Surgical is going to do, and we know that if we block for exact damage, New can't push it over the top. So if we were to need to block a Surgical Extraction after taking this Mistblade, we'd have to use E-Strike, Bone Breaker, and Scab Skins. So we would need to use 2 pieces of armor and a card from hand, and we would take 1 from the Mistblade. So what we could do instead is block the Mistblade with Scab Skins so that a Surgical is only attacking for 4, and then we still block with a 2nd piece of armor and a card from hand, but we've taken 1 less point of damage. The other line we get by blocking the Mistblade is that New can't follow up with a blue attack with Go Again and then play a Codex to get back this Leave No Witnesses. So we are going to block the Mistblade with Scab Skins, which is lost value, potentially. At the same time, the 1 point of overblock is now worth 1 point from Double Trouble. So Double Trouble would buff itself up to 3 if New reacts and banish the top 2 cards of our deck. We don't care about the top 2 cards of our deck because this game will end before we fatigue. And as far as reactions, New just has Flick Knives or Black Tech, and this could be like a Black Tech Codex line. But if it is a Flick Knives end of turn line, okay, I am super down letting New give up a whole ass dagger to take 2 cards off the top of our deck. It's in fact what we see, and we see New give up a Spider's Bite, which honestly is what I am most afraid of. And we see Just a Nick gets played, which is going to banish the top card of our deck. Devil's Trouble is going to then banish 2 more cards. But this is the sort of play that New can make that makes me think, well, I'm not going to block it at all. Because if we anticipate the Flick Knives or the Black Tech and try to block around it, then we give 4 points of defense with E-Strike and Bonebreaker. And now New gets over the top with Just a Nick. And we could anticipate Just a Nick, but we really can't, because what if this was a Hiss, or a Venomous Bite, or a Death Touch, or anything else that New just puts into Arsenal? Just a Nick really changes a lot of the math we can do, and this is why I feel really good in my decision to just never block anything. At this point, we are going to open with E-Strike, draw a card. The E-Strike will go again from Agility. What we are looking for is a blue or a yellow to decide what we're going to do with the rest of our turn. E-Strike goes for 6, we'll draw a card. If we draw into a blue, we can play Send Packing from Arsenal, discard Agile Windup, and then Arsenal Bear Fangs. Or we could play Bear Fangs, discard Agile Windup. If we draw a yellow, then we know that we are playing Bear Fangs. It just gives us a lot of options rather than opening with Bear Fangs, which would potentially open the door for a Mandible Claw E-Strike line, but we could also just discard our E-Strike, and now we're floating an extra resource, and we're kind of sad about it. So we are going to start with the E-Strike, which does do less damage than the Bear Fangs, but gives us more options and more opportunity to set up for a future turn without needing to commit another card to Arsenal or possibly play inefficiently. So drawing into a Bloodrush Bellow, we don't really have the hand to just fire this off. I mean, we could. We have the potential to draw into a blue and a 2 for 6, which would push something like 13 more damage this turn, and that would be good. But the other thing we can do is just play Bear Fangs, pitch our Blood Rush, and then discard Agile Windup while we have priority, make a Might and an Agility, keep our Send Packing in Arsenal, and just push 8 points of damage while making an Agility. It's less damage overall, but it is a lot less reliant on the top 2 cards of our deck being good. If the top 2 cards of our deck are just 2 reds, then we probably still push 8 damage. But I don't know. I feel like that is worse than having the guaranteed Agility for our next turn. Bear Fangs would have found a blue, so that would have been a really good start. We'll see what the next card on the top of our deck is, and how much damage we lost out on, considering that we would have had a floating resource, so 4 resources currently. Mandible Claw Pack Hunt would have been pretty sweet, but that's hindsight bias. We can't know for a fact that that was going to be the case. New coming in with Command and Conquer. This is fine for us to block. New has Flick Knives and not Alluring Desire, so New does not have a way to buff Command and Conquer with an attack reaction. We can just block for 6 here. I like blocking with Runner and Pack Hunt. Much as I would like to refresh my Agility with Runner, playing the Send Packing is 7 damage. It threatens New's Arsenal, lets us know if she has an attack reaction in there, forces her to commit 2 cards and Black Tech to blocking, and leaves her with a 3-card hand. We get to Arsenal a Pulping, and we conserve armor, which is really important because we want to have armor to commit to a Codex of Frailty, Leave No Witnesses line. So if I'm making this call now, it's Pack Hunt and Runner. See how I decide to block? The fact that I am thinking about committing armor at all makes me feel like I don't have a great read on this situation. Certainly anticipating that New is not going to have a reaction for this CNC, but my real problem with this is just how much armor we are committing, and I think that's going to come back to bite us later. Because based on the cards we have in hand, I'm just not really sure what we're doing this turn. I'm anticipating that it's going to be Pack Hunt Claw, but pulping just seems like a weird one. So I guess the advantage to this line, the thought process here, is that if we drew into a yellow or a blue and then discarded the Pack Hunt, we would get to follow the pulping with a send packing, but that just seems objectively worse than keeping armor and sending a little less damage, but threatening an on-hit from send packing, putting a pulping into the arsenal. I guess this does more damage, right? We're threatening 11 instead of 7, but I just don't see the benefit. And if New had a D-react in arsenal, then we lose that damage anyway. So I feel like this was a pretty big mistake on my part. I really don't like giving armor this early in the assassin matchup when we could give cards from hand instead and still have a very reasonable turn. Not exactly the hand we're looking for, especially considering that we have to now deal with a Leave No Witnesses and a Leave No Witnesses that could very easily have an attack reaction behind it. New has a card in arsenal, a card in hand. She has a Tunic activation available. This really isn't something that we can effectively block without seriously overcommitting resources that New, first of all, could just let happen. If we block this Leave No Witnesses for 7 with Beast Within, Pack Hunt, and Bonebreaker, New could just pass the turn. But if she had Venomous Bite in arsenal and a blue to pay for it, she even gets over the top of our 7, hits our arsenal, and gets the top of our deck. So we just aren't going to block. This is a pretty easy decision to not block. You coming in with Grain That Tips the Scales and Path Well Traveled to Transcend. Pretty good. Blocking the Leave No Witnesses would have worked, but we can't possibly know that. We do have a few blues in Banish. The nice thing about Kayo compared to some of the other meta heroes, especially Guardian, rest in peace, is that our blues for the most part suck. New pitching 3 to attack for 5. I mean, that isn't something we want to do, and she really is not excited to do it herself. Hitting a blue off the top, it is filling up the Banish, but again, our blues are pretty junky on offense. So might he wind up coming in for 5, New keeping an Inner Chi in hand to activate the Mask. At this point, we are just going to banish our yellow Wild Ride. Our turn is going to be Pack Hunt for 7, Arsenal, red Wild Ride. Just setting up. New is going to be on 4 cards. We have our Flesh Bag. We have our Sash. We're feeling pretty good about setting up a 5-card hand with Wild Ride. New takes the entire 7. We'll see what she's going to do with 4 cards. This hand is pretty okay for firing off Savage Sash. I don't love blocking with it here. At least early days, I am not sure what New's shred situation is like. I don't want to block with sash just to lose it to a shred. We're really going to need this sash, so at least while new can represent shred, I am good not blocking the sash, potentially losing that 2 points of value if we break sash on our next turn. That to me is better than losing it entirely. Going for the block here on Art of Desire, I believe this is a good line. We are setting up for a big 4 to 5 chain link sash turn. So if we can prevent this Art of Desire from hitting, new just takes a massive intellect penalty. Black Tech Whisperers doesn't give Art of Desire go again unless the art hits. If we can banish new's only way to pump the attack power of Art of Desire, then that works out really, really well for us. And at this point, we are just trying to make sure that new doesn't get ahead or doesn't affect our hand too much. Venomous Bite coming in for 3 is going to let it hit. See if new wants to give us Black Tech here. Because she didn't pitch a blue, she doesn't get the Fang Strike from Venomous Bite. I would expect her to break Black Tech, but that isn't what we see. Maybe she has another red in hand and would not want to risk drawing, I don't know, another red. If she draws another red off the top, or if she misses entirely, then her best line is like dagger for 1, which sounds pretty bad. I'm expecting that what the Fleshbag intimidated was a blue, which is really great for us. We lose a Blood Rush off the top, which is kind of unfortunate, but honestly is not bad either, because we are about to pop off with Wild Rides. So we're going to break our sash. We're going to play our Wild Ride from Arsenal, because we have 2 Wild Rides in hand. Even if we discard one, we do get to keep going. If we only had 1 Wild Ride in hand, we would want to start with one of those Wild Rides so that we don't accidentally lose the Wild Ride follow-up. So here we're just going to keep going with Wild Rides, really hoping that we get to keep this Command and Conquer. And we do, so this is going to lead perfectly into pitch, send, pack me for Mandible Claw, Command and Conquer. Sash, really great for setting up the 4-link KO turn. Ideally, you're pairing it with a Blood Rush Bellow. If you draw into a Beast Within as well, you get to do a 5-link KO turn, which is just insane. But we can look at how much damage we pushed here. This is 12, 17, 20. Plus we got a Might token out of the deal. This was a 5-card 21, which is slightly above rate, but slightly above rate. It's very above rate. We got a CNC in there, which, while it technically didn't hit, it did get this Passover out of New's arsenal, which is terrible news for her because she can't transcend with it. Yeah, she gets the Passover effect. She gets to banish a blue from our discard. As we've covered, our blues suck, which is the benefit of playing them against New. New doesn't get to transcend. She loses value by having to play this Passover. She also takes 6 damage from the CNC, so we're feeling really good about that. It sucks that we lost our 2 points of defensive value from Sash, but look at how much we gained by playing using the Sash that we potentially miss out on if it gets shredded. The hand we draw into is fine enough. Of course, Codex does ruin this. New grabs a Leave No Witnesses, and this is where we get punished for not having armor left to block with, where we are going to, at this point, grab Bear Fangs because it lets us push 8 points of damage. We are presenting lethal and forcing you to do something. What that means is we are going to discard Pulping to the Codex. We're going to block the Leave No Witnesses with Riled Up and Runner, and then we're going to pitch our Smash Instinct to play Bear Fangs. But if we still had armor left, what we could do instead is discard Pulping, get back Bare Fangs, block with Riled Up and Bonebreaker. Then we get to attack with Bare Fangs, and we keep a card after the draw discard, and we get to put that into Arsenal. So just maybe New is at slightly more health, but we've also thrown more disruption at her. If this same board state exists, we're okay with her having 2 or 3 more points of health, because we are continuing to set up another 5-card hand to kill her. At this point, at least we can threaten lethal. We are keeping her off of 5-card hands. So we're still in a winning position for sure, but you're seeing the detriment of giving up armor so early against Assassin once the codexes start to come out. Bare Fang's going for 8. Let's see exactly what we can get out of New. Giving a single 3 block, going down to 3, keeping out of Reckless Swing range. Of course, we don't play it, but still really good for us. And New coming in with Persuasive Prognosis. We're not going to block, because why would we? We can't reliably stop Persuasive Prognosis from hitting. We can cover 6 points of damage and still have a turn, but 6 points of damage is just a nick plus any attack reaction, or hiss plus venomous bite, or venomous bite plus venomous bite, or double hiss. We can't reliably cover Persuasive Prognosis, so even if it hits, even if it takes a red from our hand, we have a play. If it takes a blue from our hand, we have a play. If it hits a yellow off the top of our deck, we have a lot of plays. And we have the life total to just give to this, and so that is what we're going to do. Venomous Bite Hiss, exactly what New needs. So at this point, her hand is Fang Strike Slither. She plays the Fang Strike. We know that she is arsenaling a Slither, which is great news for us because we know it isn't a defense reaction, and we know it isn't a strong 1-card play. New hits a yellow off the top of our deck, and we are all set to fire off this Pulping. There is 1 Blood Rush left in our deck. Very unlikely to draw it, and even less likely to discard it. Unfortunately, we do discard our blue and keep a yellow, so we aren't going to get to Mandible Claw Pack Hunt, but we at least get to Pack Hunt. That Pack Hunt is going to threaten lethal. New needs to give us either 2 cards or card plus Flick Knives plus Tunic. Either way, that's really, really good for us. New going down to 1 here, giving us what would have been a full Tunic, giving us 2 points of value, 1 from Flick Knives and 1 from the Mistblade that can no longer be flicked. And we even get a potential extra point of value from the Mistblade not being able to buff a blue. The hand we have here is not our best offensive hand, but it's perfectly fine. We're going to be able to pitch Riled Up to play Mandible Claw, discard Agile Windup to give it go again, play Run Roughshod. That is a total of 9 points of damage, but split between 4 and 5. New needs to give us her entire hand. We get to Arsenal and Command and Conquer. We're sitting on Agility for our next turn. New does not have a play that we are concerned about. Her best line following this Mistblade is like blue from Arsenal Codex, but she's played 1, she's pitched 1. If she does play Codex, we have a Pulping in our discard that we can protect and then kill her with. So this is fine. We also, know for a fact that New doesn't have blue Codex because she has a Slither in her arsenal. So the best thing that she could do is nothing. She has no good play. So we take 1 from the Mistblade, and that's kind of it. At this point, we don't need to discard Windup because Our best play following that is CNC for 7 Mandible Claw, which gets New's hand. There is no line that we can take that just wins the game this turn. We get New's entire hand. The line we can take that sets us up to win is the Claw, discard, wind up, run roughshod, Arsenal, CNC, and then just let New pass, draw into our 4 cards, and win the game that way. So far, that's exactly what's happening. New has a Slither in her arsenal, and we draw into an insane hand of cards. What we could do here, which is, honestly, it doesn't matter. Our new opponent is at 1. Anything we're going to do wins the game. But what is a cute line that we can do here is play CNC from Arsenal, overpitch E-Strike into Mighty Windup to float 2 resources. CNC is 7 with Go again. Then we play our Blood Rush Bellow, which discards our Beast Within, so we draw into 3 more cards with 2 resources floating and an action point. And that's what I would do if I was taking this turn now. Again, it doesn't matter because we are so incredibly far ahead that we just win the game. We can also instead choose to be the greatest Flesh and Blood players and just discard our Beast Within instead of our E-Strike. At this point, we want to open with Swing Big. This is a tough one, how we actually sequence this line. I believe our best turn is Swing Big, Mandible Claw, Bear Fangs. Hold on to the CNC. We could try to be the greatest Flesh and Blood players by attacking with Bear Fangs first. Problem is we are at risk of discarding our remaining blue. If we draw into a red, we still have a line of... we kind of don't, actually. At that point, our best line is probably just CNC Pass, which wins the game, but Swing Big, Claw, Bear Fangs is just a super solid line. Opening with the Bear Fangs instead, continuing to be the greatest Flesh and Blood player as we now get to keep a blue. So we are going to send Mandible Claw, Swing Big. At the same time, I mean, as I said, this is Bear Fangs, Mandible Claw, Swing Big is not any better than Swing Big, Mandible Claw, Bear Fangs. So we get the win either way. The CNC line would have been a lot cooler than what we actually did. But that is this matchup. And I am hoping that I am proven wrong over the next couple of weeks ahead of US Nats. That New does have better game into Kayo, and I'm just wrong. That is a great learning opportunity. I would like to see that on Talishar before I see it in person, but as of now, this is how I'm approaching the matchup, where we just send face, and the onus is on New to disrupt us more than we can damage her, and so far my testing has shown that she can't, at least not reliably. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you learned something. If so, be sure to take that like button to Pound Town. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It is the best free way to support me and is a great way to do so. The best paid way to support me is through my Patreon. That link is in the video description. But whatever you do, catch me next time on Daily FaB Gameplay, and until then, take care.